We are at the Ethereum Dublin Conference, and today I'm joined by Pan and Jamie from Bitcoin marketing team. And today we are going to find out from them on how the whole space of crypto marketing is doing, and also the type of client problems that they experience on day to day. So, JB, shall I hand it over to you?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much for having us. It's been a good conference between us and Blockchain Ireland, and great to catch up with people. It's been an interesting year. I mean, obviously we've come out of a crypto winter. We're well into the rallies with everything there at the moment. There has been some changes to the industry because of AI's kind of taking up some of the lower end jobs. So we can certainly see that there's a lot of consolidation and a lot of smaller companies going out of business that are focused on things that can be automated. But in our space, like, we've been around for 10 years. We've very much focused on kind of the higher end side of things. So over the last year, we've had, DeFi platforms that we've worked with, NFT platforms, Bitcoin mining, hash rate marketplaces. We've worked with exchanges. We've worked with some derivatives exchanges. We worked with some cool little products like a little private key deck of cards and a few other bits. So it's been an interesting year and a half, certainly.
Wow, there are so many industries that you have mentioned. So I think what I would like to know is that how the crypto marketing differs from the traditional marketing. So do you have to obviously customize your strategies based on different clients that you work with on the day-to-day? So really, okay, I'll hand it over to Pan maybe.
Well, just touching on the difference between the marketing is that, the crypto space it's regulated heavily. You can't just advertise on Google or Facebook or Twitter. And so we've specialised in navigating around those restrictions for clients, finding crypto-specific networks, helping them get certification and get approved where sometimes they've come to us and they've been banned, and so trying to fix that problem for them. Of trying to get around ad blocker, things like that. So it's a much more niche-y way to get it, because you can't just sort of get some Google advertising and go, right? And we have a few businesses that have come to us, and they have gone to a traditional marketing agency and they've been banned, and they've come back to us and go, well, what do we do, sort of thing, and we try and work a way to try and fix that for them. We're talking directly to Google, talking directly to Twitter, so we can try and get them back to a position where they can start again. So that's one of the most specific sort of differences about it that we face, right?
Having 10 years of experience working with the clients in different sectors and gaining that obviously the best practices after learning, after working on that particular project. So your team already have immense experience addressing marketing needs of the customers. So what are you currently innovating in at the moment? Are there other the practices that needs to be evolved for certain domains even today, after being in the industry for 10 years?
So I suppose really, digital marketing is one thing, and getting a high standard of digital marketing regardless of what sector you're in is really important. And a lot of the stuff that I brought into crypto was coming from the video games industry. So that kind of taught me a lot there. That was kind of had a strong parallel. Right now it's really about tracking and measurement. Now there's one thing, building a strategy and being able to navigate that, and obviously we spend a lot of time, we've got a lot of research that we've built up, so we kind of know what markets are there, and we have a lot of data that we've built out ourselves. So when we're building strategies for clients, we're using that plus then all the current stuff that's going on. Really, for a company that's growing and scaling, it's being able to measure what they're doing. There's a lot of cases where you can't see cause and effect. You can see that I'm doing loads of activities, but I don't know specifically that thing on that platform has generated those users and they've come in. And that's kind of one of our areas of expertise. Like I built through my video games industry and subsequently about 20 crypto projects now, a methodology that we can kind of implement. So just over the last year, so the first one was we worked with a derivatives exchange for most of last year. They started off with a couple $100,000 turnover a month. When they came in, there wasn't that many people in place. They tried different advertising activities and they weren't able to measure anything there as well. So we spent a lot of time working with them, like really teaching them how to actually measure cause and effect. So one of the issues was they were using a platform, it was a mobile app, they were using Apps Flyer. They were relying on that, and it was because it wasn't configured right, and then because of script blocks and ad blocks and all of the privacy features of the app stores, they weren't getting any information. They're only seeing 5% of the data. So that meant that they were making decisions on 5% of the data, which was wrong. So they couldn't see what was working. So we worked with them very closely to uncover that and build systems and processes and reports around that so that they could measure it. And that meant that they could see, out of all the activities, what wasn't working, and the stuff that wasn't working, they could stop doing and just redeploy the effort and the money somewhere else. What was working okay, they could kind of tweak, and then the stuff that was working really well, they could double down on. There's another project I think probably the exchange.
Yeah, so we're working with an exchange out of New Zealand. They've been in business for about 3 years or so, and they still didn't have, after 3 years, an accurate picture of what the cost of acquisition for a customer was. They had an idea based upon fractional information that they were getting because they weren't getting all the information. And we worked with them Jamie had a couple of conversations with their CEO and the developers, and we were able to basically hardwire their database to what they were seeing, and what they uncovered was that their cost of acquisition was 10 times what they thought it was, right? And they basically sort of went and, okay, we better stop marketing now and go back, and they've spent the last few months now fixing that, and that was an eye-opener because the marketing department, all the different aspects of the business didn't have a picture of what it was costing them to actually acquire customers, right? So that's a foundational element that we put in place. And with the derivatives exchange and with many other businesses, we find that that's missing. Like Jamie said, sometimes it's been set up wrong in the first place, and we have to go in and find out why or fix it. But that foundational element is core to the way people spend money, the way that they deploy their marketing, deploy their staff and their resources. And often it's misled. They don't actually only seeing a very small percentage because Google Analytics and these other third-party platforms, they're not giving you the full picture. You're getting a sample of it, you're getting a bit of it, and it's only when you actually connect to the database of the actual business itself, connect that to the outside, and what's coming in, do you start to see the picture. And that's what we've been focused on.
And just kind of one further thing. So we worked with a blockchain gaming platform as well. So video games, not gambling. Yeah. And what they wanted to be able to measure was they're running lots of different activities. So you've got Reddit ads and you've got Facebook ads and you've got Google ads and all that because they could advertise in that with the certification that was there. But they wanted to be able to measure what channels and what kind of specific elements of those channels were bringing in traffic, how they were converting onto their platform, going through a wallet connect, and then linking that into their blockchain data that was there as well. So we kind of helped them navigate that process to get through that, so that at the end, if they're bringing in a wave of users and they can find out, okay, well, from these particular types of ads on these particular types of channels, that we're bringing in a load of users who own NFTs for loads of other crypto games, obviously that would then give them a lot more confidence in promoting to that particular audience than just we're bringing in a load of people who are holding some meme coin that has nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. So I have a question. So you have worked with industries, small scale to large scale, and startups. So from and marketing and setting up a digital marketing strategy is very, very crucial. So when there is a new startup coming up, or there is a new founder into crypto space, into this industry, so what would be your top few recommendations for this business, so that they don't go wrong in 2-3 years time? They find out that they are set up wrong, and they have to suddenly go back and do some calculations. So what would be the best practices that we should follow from the very early stages? Probably even for my small startup, I'll need to come to you for some consulting on, so that to make sure that I'm doing the things right, but in the traditional space. Yeah.
So a couple of top tips. So a lot of it is planning. You know, one thing that we get a lot of projects coming to us is they're in a rush. Okay. Now they're in a rush for various different reasons. They might have investors that are there that are kind of pushing them. They have developed something that they want to get in a hurry. But it's really spending the time to really get that high quality standard that's there. The internet's a very competitive place. Crypto's even more competitive as part of that. So being able to actually make sure that you're spending the time to establish yourself properly, because it takes time. You know, people come to us saying, oh, I want to launch a website, but it takes like 6 to 8 weeks for that to be even indexed in search engines. You know, so if you launch a website and then you start trying to get people searching for it, they can't because it's not in the index yet. You know, so there's certain things there that when a project comes to us, it's often very much slow down. Take your time. You know, to do a strategy takes anywhere from like 4 to 8 weeks, depending on how complex it is. Then on the back of that, then you actually have to do all the work, you know. And a lot of it, like I learned very early on in my career that a good marketing manager, spending money is the last thing that they do. You know, a lot of it is about getting like the time, the effort, the people, the skills around there as well. And also when it comes to advertising specifically, you know, getting the tracking right, being able to measure cause and effect, you know. Marketing budget is a finite resource for every company, you know, especially a small startup. They might have, okay, well, we've got like $1 million to do this and it's going to cost us $500,000 to build this. And then we've got the staff there and we've got 150 grand. That 150 grand, it's use it or lose it. You know, you use that incorrectly, it can bankrupt your company. You know, also a lot of the time it's really understanding that on day one, your project is going to be the worst that it'll ever be, you know. Like for any gamers in the audience there, if you played a day one game, it's always broken. You know, and if you're just dumping all of your effort into a broken product at that point, and it's not. So, you know, we would very much take quite a conservative approach when it comes to advertising. You know, we get the tracking in place, we make sure that the product is working fine, we bring small figures in, check how things are working. You know, with the DeFi project that Pantelis is acting as VCMO on, so we do a fractional CMO service at the moment. You know, they wanted to launch the product, but they hadn't been tested properly. So, you know, we kind of push back on that from the point of view to say, okay, look, the product might be great and it does work, but there's still a couple of kinks that in there that need to be ironed out. So we had to put together a testing process and work the way through that. Once we did that, now we're confident to turn around and say, yeah, you know, that money that you had, that you want to spend, you know, let's plan spending that right now. So it is often a case of kind of the battle between, you know, wanting to bring something out first versus slowing down and doing it right. You know, and if somebody approaches us saying, oh, we need help tomorrow, it's like, sorry, can't help you. And any kind of good level of marketing agency just can't turn things on a dime like that. Do you have anything to add then?
Just on the lastly on the virtual CMO service which we're operating with right now, for example, this DeFi platform we're working with, they've got a very decentralized team. They're in Korea, Japan, the US, El Salvador, New Zealand, Ireland, and what we do is basically herd those cats, you know, get the different groups of people and resources and make sure they stay on task, make sure that they're working together, they all are communicating with each other, everybody's supplying everybody else with what they need to do. And so that's been a very important and useful service that we've brought in and is starting to get a lot of traction.
Okay, very interesting. So, and I have read in the books, in marketing books, that at least 70% of your budget should go towards marketing. Is that true? Or why they specifically talk about that particular figure?
It depends what you're using. I mean, like a good rule of thumb is like 15 to 20% of whatever revenues you're generating, you should be feeding back in as a minimum. Okay. Now, obviously, at the start, you know, you might have a budget, and then you're just going to be pulling that in. But marketing's a broad thing. You know, you've got advertising, you've got communications, you've got PR, you've community management, you've got all of these different things there as well. So if you add all of those things up, that probably would be 70%. But, you know, it does boil down to skills. You know, it does boil down to people. It does boil down to resources. You know, and a lot of projects that we'd work with, there's more than one agency. You know, you might have a community management team who's kind of managing Discord and Telegram and maybe the social media channels. You've got a PR agency that's handling all of kind of the earned media relations that are there. You've got a marketing and advertising agency like ourselves there. Then you have the core team, like the founders, and then you might then have a outsourced development team as well. So, you know, every project has like 4 or 5 different components that are there. You know, so it is very important as well that where you do have these kind of different companies coming in, that's how we met. You know, we're both working on the same project for different companies. You know, he was running the advertising, we were measuring it. You know, so I was giving your team the reports on what was working and what wasn't working. You know, and then that's yeah.
Wow. So Pan and Jamie, so can I ask you to sum up maybe on the, so when a startup reaches out to yourselves to Bitcoin marketing team, so what are these services that Bitcoin marketing team offers to the clients? So if we can name them, obviously planning, strategy, and so I would like to know a little bit on the service side.
Yeah, so we do a lot of consultancy. So with some projects, they might want us to sanity check it. Like at the moment, we've got a lot of investors to come in and say, a company wants to, we want to invest in a company, or we have invested in a company, can you make sure everything's okay? So consultancy is quite broad. Yeah. We do various different types of marketing strategies, depending on if it's like, you know, a full-blown kind of like 9 to 12 month strategy, or kind of we're on the market, but we need to kind of get from A to B. That's a tactical marketing strategy. Sometimes they just need it for advertising, user acquisition, or social, or those there as well. We do a lot of research. So we've had a number of companies that say they were coming into Europe from outside of Europe, and they're like, okay, well, there's how many companies, you know, the last one was kind of more like, we want to see the Nordics and we want to see the Baltics, and they wanted to pick 2 countries to go into. So we did an analysis on all of them, and then they came back and said, okay, well, we've picked the 2 that we want to go into. Obviously advertising, we do a lot, but that's kind of linked in with all of the tracking. Like, we're very strong on that. It's our unique thing. No one else really does it, and it works really well for us. Sometimes it can be a bit of a double-edged sword, I will admit, but you know, getting the tracking in there, getting the attribution, getting the conversion funnel, all those things. And that's more for, you know, for a new product there, if you're coming in, you know, you'd want to firstly make sure that the product's okay. They're coming to us with something nearly built, so we can come in and evaluate that, make sure that the onboarding process is fine, make sure that the funnel's fine, and then build a strategy and all the packaging around that, and then give it enough time to run. And the VCMO thing, like, that's kind of organically evolved. We just ended up doing it for a number of different projects, because we take such a small number of clients in at any given time that we work really closely with these teams anyway. That it just naturally kind of evolved as a standalone service, and you know, first couple of people seem to be pretty happy with it. So, anything to add?
I think that covers it. I think generally we like to spend a small amount of time, some consulting time with a business that comes in to get a picture of what it is. That gives us the ability to say, well, you need maybe to do this, or we can do this, or do this, and so the consultancy is generally our first sort of like the gateway. Because then we can sort of really determine how much effort's required to go into what they need to do and where that effort should be directed.
And Jamie, thank you for these insights. And I have to go back and re-listen to this session for my own thorough understanding of how I can apply all these concepts in what I'm doing right now when I'm just starting up. Thank you. It was a very insightful conversation.